The void stretches infinitely, a silent canvas of absolute nothingness. There is no ticking clock to measure the passing of an age. There is no shifting shadow to mark the movement of a sun. Only the cold, heavy weight of potential hangs in the dark. It is a stillness so profound that it presses against the senses, a vacuum waiting for a purpose. Nothing exists here to define space, yet the lack of form carries a crushing gravity. It is not merely an absence of light. It is a deliberate, frozen pause before the first breath of existence. Every atom of reality is held in suspension, waiting for the trigger that will shatter this equilibrium. The silence is absolute, yet it vibrates with the pressure of what is to come. There is no history, no memory, and no future. Only the crushing, silent expectation of a beginning that has not yet dared to happen. The darkness is thick, unyielding, and waiting. The rupture happens in a heartbeat. A single point of light pierces the black, blinding and absolute. It does not grow. It explodes. The silence is shattered by the roar of pure energy rushing outward into the vacuum. Space itself tears open, stretching under the force of the ignition. Primordial dust, thick and jagged, is hurled into the abyss. The heat is instantaneous, a searing wave that turns the cold dark into a furnace of creation. Clouds of gas collide, spinning with violent grace as they collapse into themselves. From this chaos, the first structures emerge. Gravity takes hold, pulling the scattered debris into tight swirling spirals. Across the vast expanse, stars ignite. They burn with a fierce, steady light, piercing through the lingering haze of the birth. The universe is no longer a void. Galaxies spin, casting their glow into the depths, while the first fires of creation continue to rage. The fury of the stars settles into a rhythmic, grinding labor. Around the burning centers of light, the remaining debris begins to coalesce. Gravity acts as an invisible hand, pulling shards of rock and swirling gas into dense, rotating clusters. These masses collide with violent impact, generating immense heat that turns the young planets into spheres of molten liquid. They glow like embers in the dark, churning with internal pressure. Time passes in eons of slow, tectonic shifting. The surface of these spheres begins to lose its searing radiance, radiating heat out into the freezing vacuum. A crust forms, brittle and dark, hardening over the roiling interior. As the temperatures drop further, the atmosphere releases its burden. Steam condenses into rain, falling in relentless, global storms that last for ages. The water gathers in the lowlands, filling the jagged basins with vast, dark oceans. The raw matter of the universe has been tempered, refined, and set into place. In the deep, silent basins, the chemistry changes. A microscopic pulse stirs within the brine. A single cell divides, then two, then millions, weaving a complex web of life that defies the stillness. This is the first rhythm of the world. It starts in the dark, protected by the depth of the tides, but the urge to expand is relentless. Life pushes against the boundaries of the water. Fins beat against the current, testing the resistance of the shallows. One creature drags itself onto the mud, gasping in the thin, raw air, and the barrier between elements dissolves. The transformation accelerates. Green shoots break through the soil, reaching upward to claim the sunlight. Roots anchor into the cooling crust, cracking stone to find water. Forests rise, layer upon layer, scraping the sky with dense, rustling canopies. The world is no longer just rock and water. It is a sprawling, breathing entity, pulsing with potential, waiting for the one who will finally look back at it and wonder why. The forest canopy rustles, but the sound is no longer the focus of the world. A man emerges from the tree line, his movements deliberate, his eyes scanning the horizon. He reaches the edge of a jagged cliff, where the land abruptly ends and the vast, darkening sky begins. He stops. The wind pulls at his hair, but he does not flinch. Below, the sun dips into the ocean, bleeding orange light across the waves until the horizon is a thin, dying line. He bends down, fingers brushing the grit of the earth, and finds a smooth, gray stone. He lifts it, turning the object over in his palm, feeling the weight and the texture of 1,000,000 years of erosion. He does not look back at the forest. He tilts his head, his gaze climbing past the clouds to the first faint points of light piercing the twilight. He stands perfectly still. The silence of the universe presses in, but he does not shrink away. He holds the stone as if it were a key, his brow furrowed, his breath steady. He is no longer just a creature of the earth. He is a witness. He stares into the deep, cold expanse of the stars, and the question forms, silent and heavy. The night does not wait for an answer. As the last light vanishes, the cold creeps in, turning the air brittle. The man moves with sudden, sharp intent. He gathers dry brush, piling it into a tight mound, and strikes two stones together. Sparks fly, biting into the dark, until a thin wisp of smoke curls upward. He feeds the flame, nursing the heat until it roars, pushing the shadows back to the edge of the clearing. The fire is a barrier, a small, flickering defiance against the infinite dark. He turns to the cave wall, his fingers tracing the rough, damp surface. He picks up a sharp shard of flint and begins to scrape. The sound is rhythmic, a harsh, grating rasp that cuts through the silence. He carves a jagged line, then a circle, then a series of marks that mimic the patterns of the stars he saw earlier. Each stroke is a deliberate act of will. He is not just surviving, he is recording. He is pinning his fleeting thoughts to the stone, forcing the void to hold his memory. The symbols catch the firelight, casting long, dancing shadows. The symbols on the cave wall did not remain isolated. They migrated, carried by voices across generations, evolving into the stories that define the human experience. Among these, one narrative took root, casting a long shadow over the centuries. It begins in a garden where the air is still and the path is clear. Adam stands beneath the canopy, his hand reaching toward the unknown, while Eve watches, the weight of the moment suspended in the silence. It is not merely a tale of origin, it is the first true architecture of choice. They stand at the threshold of a decision that alters the trajectory of everything that follows. The consequences bloom instantly, turning the garden into a memory and the world into a field of labor and discovery. This story of the first choice has become the bedrock of human thought. It is the prism through which we view our own capacity for error and our reach for knowledge. Every struggle, every discovery, and every act of faith since that moment has been a reverberation of that initial, fateful turn. We carry the echo of the garden in our blood, a constant reminder that every action carries the gravity of a beginning. The garden is not a distant place. It is a recurring threshold. We have inherited the weight of that first choice, but the story did not end with the closing of those gates. The narrative has surged forward, through the rise of empires and the fall of civilizations, landing squarely in our hands. We are no longer the observers of the past. We are the active architects of the next chapter. Look at the world as it stands today. The ink is still wet on the page, shimmering and dark, waiting for the next stroke of the pen. Every decision we make is a physical mark upon the canvas of existence. When we choose to build, to speak, or to reach out, we are not just repeating history, we are composing it. The gravity of the present is absolute. There is no script written for us, no preordained path to follow. We stand at the edge of the void, just as the first stars did, and we possess the power to ignite the dark. The responsibility is immediate. It is found in the way we use our hands. The camera begins its slow, steady retreat, moving away from the individual, away from the page, and back into the vast, swirling dark. The nebula expands, a tapestry of light and dust, revealing the scale of the silence that started it all. In this distance, the search for a singular origin point fades. The mystery is not found in the initial spark or the first breath of creation. It is not hidden in the ancient past or the distant stars. The true weight of existence settles here, in the present moment. It is found in the way a hand reaches out to another, in the bridge built between two people, and in the quiet resolve to act when the outcome is unknown. Every connection forged today is a strike against the void. Every choice made is a deliberate mark on the canvas of reality. We are the ones who fill the silence with intent. As the stars blur into a soft, distant glow, the urgency of the pen gives way to a steady, calm clarity. The story is not a race toward a final chapter. It is the act of living itself. The ink dries, the page remains, and the meaning is, Whatever we choose to write into the quiet, there is no more searching required. The universe is vast, cold, and empty, yet it is also exactly what we make of it. We hold the present, and in that holding, we find our peace.